And the Ravens fans are heading to the exits. With the story of this game in the second half, the Chiefs defense. This game is over, and you can doubt the Chiefs. You can dislike the Chiefs. You can disrespect the Chiefs. You're going to have to deal with the Chiefs being the AFC champions for the fourth time in 5 seasons. The Chiefs have the Lamar Hunt Trophy, and they're taking it to Vegas for Super Bowl 58. The Kansas City Chiefs are champions of the AFC, 17-10 over the Ravens.
Here we go again. Boy, what a ride it's been this season as the Chiefs are back to another Super Bowl. They tie the Patriots and Bills for most Super Bowl appearances over a 5-year stretch historically. They're trying to win their third. They're entering those conversations. You know, the Patriots went through it, and we said, boy, we'll never see this again. And we might be seeing it again with the Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome into Sports Daily, everybody. Jacob Albracht here alongside Tommy Castor. Jad Chambers producing. A lot of fun in store today on the show as we, of course, take you through that Kansas City Chiefs AFC Championship win again. Welcome in. How are you, Tommy? Good morning.
Yeah, great game last night. Actually, 2 great games to watch on Championship Sunday. I know we're going to get into both of them, obviously focus on the Kansas City-Baltimore game, but it was a big weekend. The Shockers break their losing streak yesterday while the Chiefs game was going on. They played at Coke Arena and took down an SMU team that's pretty solid. And so I know we'll talk about that as well. There's just a lot to get to, as there always is on a Reaction Monday.
And we will spend time, Shocker fans, on that win throughout the week because it's an awesome feeling, and to see them do that after, you know, where their back was against that wall last week and continues to be, but to bounce back was nice. But yeah, it's a Chiefs Monday here. And Tommy, you know, that plan that we've been talking about for months now, they stick to it yesterday. And again, other than not taking the field goal and going for it on 4th down, which it was a pretty good 4th down go for opportunity. But other than that, they stuck to the plan again. Mahomes didn't do much in the second half. What do? They continue and commit to the run, which they absolutely did, even though it wasn't as effective as it has been. They ran it, you know, in total 32 times between all players, but 24 to Isaiah Pacheco. And they lean into their defense, and their defense played great again. I mean, this has been the way for them. It took a while, obviously, for them to fully buy into it, but they have, and here we are.
Yeah, more than anything else, I mean, I think that the defense for Kansas City absolutely made Baltimore get away from their game plan that they wanted to implement in the game. I mean, I can't imagine that it was the plan of the Ravens to not give Gus Edwards hardly any touches at all, or to have Lamar Jackson throw the football like he did. So Kansas City's defense, and again, credit to Steve Spagnuolo. The guy is probably the best defensive coordinator in the National Football League. There's no doubt about that. So they definitely were in a position where they knocked the Ravens off of their game. They knocked the Ravens away from the way that they wanted to play that game. And so that's a credit to Kansas City's defense, and that dictated how we got here.
Yeah, and look, this is where you get into experience matters, right? Zay Flowers, unfortunate for the Ravens fumble,
Yeah.
and this is a totally different game, right? It changed the entire dynamic of the game. It changed what they felt like they had to do late. But I mean, they were right there until that fumble, right? And so it's just one or two big plays in these games. We know historically is what it comes down to, and the Chiefs have just been in these spots so many times that Xavier Sneed is looking to make that big play on that. I mean, he should have won the game's MVP if there was one for that play alone. It was an incredible play, and it won the Chiefs the game. Lamar Jackson did not the game plan and the script I don't understand for the Ravens. They only ran the ball with running backs 6 times. We talked all week. They ran the ball last week 43 times against one of the best run defenses in football. And then they come in against one of the worst run defenses in football and run it 6 times in a close game where only 27 points were scored in total. That I don't get that one, John Harbaugh. And I think John Harbaugh is one of the best in the business, but I don't know what that game plan was for the Ravens because it was a mistake. And
well, I don't know if that was, I mean, like I mentioned before, I don't think that was the plan of Baltimore going in. I think Kansas City's front four, I think that Kansas City's front four did a really good job.
They ran it 3 times to Gus Edwards, and he broke off a 15-yard run. And it's not like Lamar Jackson wasn't running the ball effectively. The Chiefs didn't do anything to stop the run. The Ravens just stopped running the ball.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the big plays, the big pass plays to Zay Flowers, there really wasn't a whole lot effective going on for Baltimore offensively. I mean, and so again, that's the secondary for Kansas City. I mean, outside of giving up a couple of big pass plays to Zay Flowers, they were on point the entire game from start to finish. And so, you know, I definitely think that what Kansas City brings to the table defensively, they felt disrespected going into the game. They felt like the attention was on Baltimore's defense and how stout the Baltimore defense has been all season long. And really, I think it was Kansas City's defense that got a little bit overlooked. I think one thing that Kansas City did more in the Baltimore game than what they did against Buffalo was they blitzed Lamar Jackson. You know, Steve Spagnuolo called blitzes that really got Lamar out of the pocket, but then they were able to contain him a little bit more than I think that they, you know, were planning on. And so that, I think that was an advantage. That was something that I certainly wasn't expecting a whole lot of in the game, but they did it. And I don't think Baltimore was expecting that either.
Look, Lamar, that is what the Ravens have been a big play offense all year. It's not like Lamar Jackson is picking apart defenses. He hasn't been picking apart defenses. This is what he does. They make big plays and they control the ball on the ground. They did not, for whatever reason, make an effort to run the ball. I'll never understand it. I don't get it. I don't know why they did that. Their defense was fine. When we go back to what we've talked about with the Chiefs, and, you know, it's all these things. 1, lean on the defense. Check. 2, stop with the penalties. Check. 3, do not turn the ball over. Check. And 4, run the ball. Those are the things we've been saying all year. That's what they're doing now. And forever, this team has been like, if they would have done this in the regular season, Tommy, they probably would have lost like 2 games. But it took them a while to completely change the DNA of who they are. I mean, that you got to, like, we talked last year about like changing the style of the offense without Tyreek Hill. Very impressive, right? This year, they've had to change their entire identity offensively, and it's worked. It took them, you know, 15, 16 games to do it, but they've done it. And this is why I've thought they were so dangerous all year. And they're dangerous moving forward too, by the way, because yes, they're going to lose some pieces, but I mean, Chris Jones has not been the same Chris Jones. Now he still disrupts every play. Don't misunderstand what Chris Jones.
He wanted that bonus money.
Maybe he's lost a touch, but he's still maybe the top 3 at his position in football. But when I'm talking about moving forward with the team, like, there is a path now. The window may not close like we thought it would because they have so many good. They're not letting Xavier Sneed go. He's not going to go. Like, he'll be there. They didn't have Willie Gay in this game, Tommy. And Baltimore didn't run the ball. I will never understand Baltimore's game plan. Willie Gay's not playing. You ran it 43 times against Houston. And they ran it 6 with the running backs, 14 total against one of the worst run defenses in football, against one of the worst quarterback defending run defenses. This has been a bad screen defense, and they targeted the backs a lot. And maybe that was their plan. But my goodness, I mean, the Chiefs gained 320 yards of offense. Patrick Mahomes did almost nothing in the second half. It's just remarkable that Baltimore, I will never understand it.
And
It's
Baltimore,
just wild to me.
Baltimore couldn't get their tight ends involved, and it was much talked about Mark Andrews returning to the game. He only had a couple of catches. I'm not sure he's 100%. I mean, I think that coming back from a broken bone like he had, that's going to be difficult. But really, they held him down. Isaiah Likely, who's had some big games recently, he didn't really do a whole lot. So they were able to lock down on the tight ends as well defensively.
All right, let's go to the KFH hotline. Scott there, 869-1240 is that number, Chiefs fans today. Scott, what's on your mind? Welcome in.
Best thing I heard last night, right after the penalty and the subsequent fumble, my son yells out, "Oh, the Ravens just got deflowered."
Oh,
clever.
That's clever.
I was dying.
That's we appreciate a good sense of humor, Scott. We do, from your son. I think that's Jad. That's safe for radio. I hope it is, because it's out there now.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, all right, we're good.
But yeah, the performance by the defense was outstanding, and they were hitting.
I
think part of what Lamar's problem was last night, there was no pocket for him to stand in most of the time. They kept getting pushed back in his face, so he didn't have time to really work most of the big plays. Tranquil was outstanding. He was on game last night.
Well, and I think, Scott, that's a good point, because, and I mentioned this during the game, I tweeted it, that I feel like you hear about guys like L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones for good reason, and some of the big time, Trent McDuffie, big time players defensively. We don't hear about Drew Tranquil as much. We don't hear about Charles Omenihu as much. And I know Omenihu went down with a knee injury in the game, but both of those guys, ever since they joined the Chiefs, they've been game wreckers. They really have been, and they've been all over the place. And so I thought Tranquil had a great game. I agree with you. I think Omenihu, before he got hurt, had a great game as well. He had the strip sack on Lamar. And to your point about them not giving Lamar time in the pocket, there's not a quarterback out there right now other than Lamar Jackson that can run 40 yards to pick up 5. Like, that's just the way that Ravens offense is built. And, they got him out in space, and they were able to limit what he was able to do with the big play with his legs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they had one I can remember, and we appreciate the call, Scott. Drew Tranquil, good point on him. I don't know that throughout the season, I mean, Andy Reid has talked as much about Drew Tranquil probably as any player that I can recall, just listening in every week to Andy Reid. He
doesn't get the accolades. He doesn't get the accolades.
Well, he does internally, and I think he doesn't because Willie Gay's so dang good and plays that spot normally, but he's been and had, availability issues all year, and Tranquil's had to adjust and step into that role and then back to his other one. Tranquil's been awesome this year. Again, front office, they missed on some receivers, but they have done such a good job everywhere else. And they've missed on some receivers, but Rashee Rice is a superstar. Like, he is going to be a star in this league. Travis Kelce's all the way back. He and Mahomes have, found their connection again.
I've been waiting for you to take a victory lap this entire show about all the times you've said, as long as you've got 15, as long as you've got 87, and as long as you've got the defense, the Chiefs are in good shape.
I've
been waiting for that.
I'm got to see, because you fished out there some sort of like receipts or something that you have. And so I also have some. I've just, I've got them like loaded up and ready to go for you, but I don't know where you're going to head with this, so I don't know how aggressively I need to take that lap. But we have some receipts on this season, and it is interesting, and it hasn't just been here. And it is different being outside of Chiefs Kingdom and not being like a diehard grow up your whole life Chiefs fan. But being able to look at this team objectively all year, it has stood out to me that this was one of the best defenses in the league. And with that, the thought of Mahomes in the playoffs and that defense is just like, good luck, everybody else. And Brady had those years too, right? Where the Patriots had this unbelievable defense and Brady. And you're like, how are you going to beat that? Good luck, everybody. Because when you have a great defense, you know that you're going to be in a position to win a game late. That's what a great defense allows you to do. And then you just happen to have the best in the business at that, plus the greatest tight end of all time. Good luck, everybody. And that's, it did take a reinvention of themselves. And it took a long time to get there. But you could see it, or I could see it, like it was there. Even when they looked terrible, it was there. Because the things that made them look terrible were not like fundamental flaws. They were just making mistakes. Just like the Ravens last night. Or maybe a better example is the Lions. Everyone's kind of on Dan Campbell a little bit. And I'm like, guys, Dan Campbell's players made some critical mistakes in the second half. They dropped passes. They did these things. Like the thing that got the Lions to that moment and up 24-7 or whatever it was this ultra aggressive. Like it's not like they made some mistakes in the big game. The Chiefs just haven't made a lot of mistakes lately. And Baltimore yesterday, Baltimore may have won that game if Zay Flowers doesn't fumble that ball. Like it was that's how big that play was from Snead. But he fumbled the ball. And the Chiefs didn't make the big mistake. And the Chiefs typically don't in these spots. And that's a part of what makes Mahomes so great. And then you give him that kind of defense. I mean, folks, this defense it's either the best or the second best in football and has been all year long. I mean, it has been staring at us in the face how good this defense is. Sometimes the offense totally let down the defense, right? But even then it was hard on like the way this defense has been built. They've spent 3 years building it, and this is the fruition of it. Like this is it. This is it at full force. It probably won't ever be this good again, but the offense is going to be better soon than it was this year too. But just like this defense is as good as you'll ever see. And it's sitting there and it has been all year.
Well, I think the point that you made was that there have been a lot of different times during the regular season when the offense let the defense down, or they put the defense's backs up against the wall, or the defenses had to bail out Kansas City's offense multiple different times in the regular season. That's all true. And then the playoffs happen and you get Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. And that's to your point and what you've been saying for so long. Yeah, sure. My judgment has been clouded during the regular season based off of all the mistakes and everything that we've seen during the regular season. But I guess what I forgot about was you've got Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. And when that happens, and we've seen it through 3 games so far, 3 down, 1 to go in the playoffs, the mistakes they start to go away. I was really concerned. And it, for me, it crescendoed on that Christmas Day game against the Raiders and just how terrible they looked offensively and all the mistakes and everything. And I thought this is not anything they're going to overcome, because to me, they did look like fundamental flaws. They looked like things that this team offensively was broken. And I just remember thinking, yeah, this defense is absolutely phenomenal, but there's no way they can overcome this once they make it into the playoffs. And they have. They really have. They've cut out the mistakes. They've been more disciplined. I mean, I had never seen Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce reacting on the sidelines the way that they did during that stretch of games in the regular season when things looked to be totally off the rails for Kansas City. They put it back together. Credit to them. Credit to Andy Reid. They put it back together.
It's funny you brought up that game. The one that I recall and that I went and found for this victory lap exercise, depending on how aggressive you go here, was from after the Buffalo game, I think. Okay. And then Jad has.
Do you have audio of mine? You
Jad does
audio
have
of mine?
I had you because I didn't know how aggressive you were going to get. So we have some audio from Jad, and then I have a text conversation of mean things you said to me. Because listen, but we don't have to go down that road.
You didn't even tell me you were doing this.
You tweeted last night that you were going to somehow prove me wrong or something, that I had something wrong today.
I don't think, I don't think, I'm not going to try to prove you wrong. What I have for you after we get done with the commercial break is how I was right about the game yesterday more right than you were about the game yesterday.
More right when I picked the Chiefs to win, and you told me all week the Ravens were going to win, and they were better.
Well, no. Remember, I took the Chiefs. I took the points.
You took the points. You didn't take the Chiefs.
I didn't. I took the points though. So
Yeah.
we both won, but I was more right than you about the game yesterday, and I'll point out why that was after the break.
Possible because I said the Chiefs were going to win and you didn't. But okay, let's go. And listen, I don't bring a knife to a gunfight, so I've got some receipts here. We'll have whatever we need locked and loaded when we return. You brought it up, not me. 869-1240 is the number to call. Chiefs fans, weigh in. How happy are you this morning? Also, KU, K-State, Wichita State basketball talk. We will get to a little of that today. We'll spend a lot more time with the NFL and then get into college basketball throughout the week, but a lot to talk about on a Reaction Monday, a Chiefs Monday. Shreyas Laddha joins us a little later in the show to spend a little time on KU's game over the weekend in Ames. It's all coming for you on a jam-packed Monday on Sports Daily.
The commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
The Chiefs third down. They're 5 of 6 on third down. They have 3rd and 9 at the Raven 21, leading 14-7. At 7 minutes to go in the half. Ravens shifting on the defensive line. Mahomes raises the right leg and takes the snap. Darts a pass, near side, caught by Kelce. Wrapped to the ground at the 12. A gain of 9 yards, and now Travis Kelce with that reception. The all-time NFL postseason reception leader in National Football League history, eclipsing the great Jerry Rice.
That is unbelievable to just think anybody would do anything to eclipse anything Jerry Rice has ever done. And he's not done yet, ladies. He's not done yet. Like, he's still got at least one game to go. I think more. I will. We can get into that later. It's not time for retirement talk right now. Chiefs winners over the Ravens. They stuck to the plan and it worked. As we look ahead to the Super Bowl now against the 49ers, and, early lines on this will be interesting because the betting public was all over the Ravens. I think we were talking before, Tommy, and I said, I think Vegas is about to make a ton of money on the Chiefs. And I don't know what the final numbers were on dollars, but everybody was on the Ravens. And I was like, this is one of those spots where Vegas has never had that opportunity.
At one point, the line went up to, I think, like Chiefs plus 5.5. I think at one point, and then it started backing down a little bit. More money was coming in on the Chiefs, but man, they were really trying to get money on the Chiefs.
The 49ers are 1-point favorites right now in the Super Bowl. I will bet you this on this day. I'll bet you before that game is played, the line moves in the Chiefs. It'll either be a pick 'em or the Chiefs will be favored. Everybody's going to bet the Chiefs in this game. Like, everybody will bet the Chiefs in this game.
Get Kansas City on plus money now while you can.
Yep. It's going to be, I was going to look and do that. I was just looking. I actually had a preseason Super Bowl bet on them. So I've got my value on the Chiefs now because I've got it at like 7-1, I think. So I don't feel the pressure to do that as much as I normally would, but I agree. I think that line's going to move to the Chiefs before this is all said and done. Everybody's going to bet. And that's probably, honestly, that's probably the wrong thing. The 49ers showed you what they're capable of in the second half against the Lions. Don't forget that when you're thinking about this game. I haven't come up with, what I think about the game specifically so far. I told you I thought the Chiefs would win the Super Bowl a long time, but that's a long time ago thing. I got to sit down and I haven't decided where I'm going to go on this bet yet. But we'll get into that as we make our way through the next 2 weeks as we do it. All right. So Tommy picked this fight, so I'm going to let him go first. I don't know what he's coming at me with here. But I'll be prepared. What are you ready to dunk on me for this morning? I don't know what it could possibly be.
Well, what was my theme of the entire show on Friday? What did I harp on multiple different times on our show on Friday? If you'll recall, it was all about how all the pressure was on the Ravens. That's what I kept talking about. All the pressure was on the shoulders of the Ravens. And how are they going to respond? And Lamar Jackson locked up with big-time money and the likely MVP this season, and how no pressure was on Kansas City, and how it was all going to be on the shoulders of Baltimore, and how would they respond? They looked pretty ordinary. They crumbled under that pressure. I wholeheartedly believe that them abandoning the run game was part of that pressure. I wholeheartedly believe that the mistakes that they made and the penalties that they made and looking undisciplined, it was a result of the pressure. They've not been in this position with this particular team ever. And they rolled over opponents during the regular season. They didn't have that kind of pressure in the regular season. They take on a team that's playing free, playing loose. Everybody doubted Kansas City this entire season, including me. I'll own that. And they came in there and they just thought, you know what? We're the underdogs. We're the villains. Nobody wants us to win free. And Lamar, the MVP, looked pretty ordinary. They crumpled under that pressure yesterday. And I predicted that. I talked about it the entire show on Friday
they would
about
win.
how much pressure. I took the Chiefs in the points, but I talked about how the pressure was on Baltimore.
let me preface this again and say this is a silly discussion because there's equal pressure in these moments. How can you sit here and tell me that the Chiefs didn't just respond to that same pressure in a better way? They didn't have more pressure. They responded to the same pressure better.
I think looked like they didn't really have any pressure on their shoulders. They looked like they could just go out there and perform, right? Like how many, like all the different analysts that picked Baltimore to win the game. I mean, you go like, I think CBS, every single one of them picked Baltimore to win the game, right? Nobody thought Kansas City would even be in this spot. And they were. I don't think they had, I'm just saying, I don't think that the majority of people thought that Kansas City would be in this spot. And certainly not very many people picked Kansas City to win the game, right? And so I think that the pressure clearly got to Baltimore. And that's what I talked about.
I'll agree with that.
So many different times on Friday.
But I don't think there was more pressure. I think that the Chiefs handled the pressure better. It's the same pressure. But just like
I don't think it is.
Look at the Lions and the 49ers. Do you think that the Lions felt more pressure than Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers? Of course they didn't. They crumbled under the same pressure. The 49ers responded better in the second half.
I think it flip-flopped. I think that Detroit came out on fire.
So for you, pressure is parallel to losing then. Only teams that lose feel pressure?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm suggesting is that when you go back and you look at Baltimore and the way that they started the game, the way they played the game, I saw panicked play calling. You talked about it so many different times in the first segment about how you'll never understand the game plan, them abandoning the run and doing that.
That was a stupid decision.
That looked like panicked play calling. It looked like the pressure got to them. It looked like they had more pressure on their shoulders and they crumbled underneath it.
Listen, they never ran the ball. So I don't know. I think the game plan before the game was to not run them.
Gus Edwards had a 15-yard run. Lamar Jackson broke off a big one early on in the game. They early on did run the ball. Then they panicked and they got away from it.
I mean, they ran it 3 times. Gus Edwards ran it 3 times. He never ran it. Like you don't like they didn't run the ball. And I don't. If that was because the Chiefs went down and scored a touchdown on their opening drive, I mean, I can't believe that would be. I think they went into that with some other game plan, whether it was the screen game, the tight ends. I don't know what it was.
I think they panicked.
Designed runs were not happening.
I think they panicked because of the pressure, and I think they panicked because Kansas City held onto the ball for so long. Like the ball control, the time of possession was absolutely dominated by Kansas City in the first half. And I think Baltimore panicked because of that. I think that they were like, well, we can't run the ball. Like we got to score. We got to have quick scores to keep up with this if Kansas City's going to hold on to the ball like they did throughout the course of the first half, especially.
Well, that's what Kansas City's aimed to do the entire season. I still don't understand. I think that every team feels pressure in these spots. I think the Chiefs responded to it better clearly, yes, yesterday. So whatever. Like I will take that loss, I guess, because I guess I don't understand the question. It feels like an arbitrary thing we're trying to find when we talk about that. Let's go to the phone line. Let's go to Daryl on the line, on the KFH hotline. Daryl, what's up? Welcome into Sports Daily. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Yeah, good talking to you guys. Good morning. I think that point spread, Chiefs Niners start out at 2.5 and it's already come down to 1. I think.
Okay. I didn't look last night, believe it or not.
Yeah, it did start out at 2.5. So we don't know how that's going to end up. But
it'll end up to the Chiefs or a pick 'em. I'm telling you, everybody in the world is going to bet the Chiefs right now.
Yep, and I don't blame him. I'm not going to bet it myself, even though I'm a big Chiefs fan. And I think that Baltimore spread ended up at 4.5 right before the game started. So
it did at kick time, but there was a point yesterday. It got up to it was either 5 or 5.5. It got up that, and then it came back down a little bit. But it did. Like I don't know how that happened. I don't know if it was because Vegas isn't going to react that way to like one bet. It would have been a flood of sharps making the bet on the Ravens. And I get it. Like, I get looking at that game. I just, like, again, it's the same thing all year, though. Like, are you really, like, there were so many people, like, betting the house. And I'm like, guys, like, have you watched this team all year? Like, you're going to bet the house against that defense and Mahomes? You're crazy to be that overconfident. Lamar Jackson has had like a half of good football in the postseason over his entire career. I was stunned at how many people were ready to just to put it all on the Ravens. I never understood it. I haven't understood it all year, quite frankly, Daryl, but especially in that game, like so much of this comes down to quarterback play in these spots, and we just simply haven't seen Lamar Jackson do it. And he wasn't awful in that game yesterday. He wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. And the Chiefs are I don't even know that the Chiefs are better. They're designed in a way right now that it's going to be really difficult to beat them if they're not making mistakes, and they're not at the moment.
Well, obviously in the first half, they dictated the tempo right off the bat. They set down, laid down the law, those first two drives. And, if Jackson doesn't make that great play where he's almost sacked and throws that touchdown and then catches his own pass, which he almost scored a touchdown on. He had one tackle to beat. It'd have been a whole different game. So, he didn't play that bad, but you're right. They panicked. They got away from the run game. He was supposed to, I think the over-under on him running was like 61 or 2 yards. He didn't even get close to that. It was just the Chiefs got up early.
He had 54.
And
he had 54 rushing yards. I mean, I know it didn't feel that way, but he did end up over 50.
Yeah. But he did. He had those two great plays. And I really think that the Chiefs would have. They missed that fourth down opportunity, and they're up 14-0. It was 4th and 1. Pacheco got stepped. I think if the Chiefs would have got that first down, they'd probably blown them out. I really do. But that's a whole different story. Because
Mahomes only had 69 yards passing in the second half, Daryl. It's an interesting point. We appreciate the call very much. Call us again here over the next couple of weeks getting into the Super Bowl, because I want to get your take on that game too, Daryl. But I do think I think we're misrepresenting. We aren't, but there is a general consensus of misrepresenting how that game went. I mean, the Ravens outgained the Chiefs, Tommy, in that game. They were a Zay Flowers touchdown on the literal goal line from that being a very different scenario late. Like, it's not like the Ravens came in and blew it, or like the Ravens didn't do what the Lions did, right? The Ravens were in a position to win that game several times. In fact, the Chiefs just made a couple of really big plays to get it done, but that was not some dominating performance by the Chiefs. It wasn't at all, but they got the win because again, when you've been in that spot so many big times and you've got guys like Xavier Sneed to make that kind of play. I mean, I cannot get over how incredible that play was. And yeah, the Ravens had some stupid penalties. It was fascinating to hear early Romo say, he basically went inside the meetings they have, and he said, I'm just going to tell you guys not to reveal any secrets. It doesn't matter now, but the Ravens are going to hit Mahomes because they don't like the way and they did, and it cost them, right? Yep. They went too far that way. So again, that was their game plan, and they had a couple of boneheaded decisions. I tweeted, I hope, like hell, Travis Kelce was mic'd up in that game because his mental chess match against the Ravens was incredible. He was goading them all game long.
He was directly responsible for Kyle Van Noy's penalty, right? He was the one. He didn't get penalized. Van Noy did because Kelce baited him.
That is such old school trash talk. Like, we've seen some of the all-time greats do that over the years, and that was a masterclass in getting inside their head. And it was so calculated too. Like, we could all see it except for the Ravens. Like, it's like that person that just knows how to get under your skin, and they'll do it, and you just can't stop yourself from letting it make you angry. I really, really, really hope he was mic'd up during that game.
That's kind of how I feel about you, to be completely honest.
I haven't done anything yet. I haven't even pulled my receipts yet. We'll see. Jad's got some audio. That's not necessary. The proof's in the pudding. The Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. They've had plenty of opportunities to lose the games that have got them there. It's not like they've been some train steamrolling. They could have lost that game yesterday easily, right? It's that close in the NFL. But they're there, and they'll play the 49ers in the Super Bowl. 869-1240. What do you think, Chiefs fans? Having some fun here on Sports Daily. We'll wrap up hour number 1 with some more talk on Chiefs Ravens when we return on Sports Daily.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
It's easy to think all money managers are pretty much the same, but at Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Different? How? Sell high commission investment products, right?
No, Fisher Investments doesn't sell any commission-based investment products.
Well, they must earn commissions on trades.
Nope, never at Fisher. We're a fiduciary obligated to act in our client's best interest. It's the highest standard of care for a financial advisor.
How do you know what's in their best interest?
We get to know our clients and then tailor a portfolio based on their goals and needs.
But you probably sneak in some hidden and layered fees.
No, we have one transparent management fee, structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, you really do look out for your clients.
That's because our top priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. It might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments and securities involve the risk of loss.
Hi, Tom here. Coming up tomorrow morning on the Bob and Tom Show. Our NFL correspondent, comedian Kostaki Economopoulos, and a man small of stature but big in the laughter department, comedian Brad Williams.
52 inches high, maybe a $1.05 soaking wet. Too heavy to fly. They kicked me off, and there was a perfectly good fat woman sitting 3 rows behind me.
That's tomorrow morning on the Bob and Tom Show.
Bob and Tom!
Bob and Tom, mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit NoTimeToWait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob and Tom.
Dear numbskulls and Kristen. I bought my mother-in-law a candle, and it looks like a normal candle, and it's labeled Orchard Breeze.
Yeah.
Actually, however, it's a gag candle that smells like farts. I can't wait to hear
that's a great
about
idea.
my mother and father-in-law arguing about who passed gas when they light the thing, not realizing that it's the candle.
Bob and Tom in the morning and highlights all day long.
Bob and Tom, mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob and Tom.
For New Year's this year, we went to my wife's sister's house. My wife had too much to drink, and she went to lay down early. When midnight struck, I ended up kissing her sister. It was supposed to be a peck, but it ended up being a pretty long, intimate kiss. Do I need to tell my wife, or should I talk to her sister?
You are 24 days late.
Yeah.
Telling your wife.
Just pack it.
Yeah.
Bob and Tom in the morning and highlights all day long.
Bob and Tom, mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob and Tom.
There's a pink Stanley Cup frenzy going on at Target. What you failed to mention, down the road at Walmart, there are currently 2 guys duking it out over the last sleeve of red Solo cups. Vegans are less likely to catch COVID. What you failed to mention, see, even COVID hates vegans.
Bob and Tom in the morning and highlights all day long.
Bob and Tom, mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob and Tom.
The guy sent me a DM. Comedy Central didn't hire you because they're fat phobic. Now, Christy, you've seen me in person. I am soft in places.
You are handsome. You are not.
I'm husky, but I'm not. This is discrimination living being.
Right. No, you're not.
Bob and and Tom in the morning and highlights all day long.
Bob and Tom mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240.
Devin Duvernay stands back at the 10. Tommy Townsend to punt it out from the shadows of his, well, he punted it from his own end zone. This time near midfield. Punts it away. High spinner. Duvernay is going to let it bounce. The gunner trying to get down there to down it. And will so. Justin Watson downs it at the 2-yard line on the best punt of the year by Tommy Townsend, who sprints up the numbers to find Watson. A 46-yard punt that will be downed at the 1-yard line.
Punts, field goals, all a part of what has made the Chiefs great late in this season. Took them a while to get there, but they got there. And here we go. I'm not going to dig up old texts where Tommy was really, really unkind to me and said really
I wasn't
mean
unkind to
things
you. How
me.
was I unkind to you? Wasn't I? I was unkind to the Chiefs because they were
You were
like
unkind
garbage.
to me. You were unkind to me for telling you don't panic. Everything's going to be fine. It was you get a little heated on me, and that's okay. It's okay. It's all right. We won't need to dig into that in the the body blows you were trying to send my way.
Look,
but
if you can't take the heat, I mean, get out of the kitchen.
Okay, let's bring up the text here. So this was, I believe, after the Buffalo game. I think, I don't remember what day it was, but I had unkind words and I said, it's a terrible game. Don't get me wrong. But your point was the Chiefs are really bad. And I said, the Chiefs aren't really bad. They're 9-5. They're not really
bad at that time.
Well, they weren't, because they were 9-5.
Okay.
They were playing poorly, but they were 9-5. And I think still at that point leading the division. And you said, I'm so tired of you downplaying this team. They're flat out terrible outside of a good defense. Waste of talent. Play calling stupid. I'm just like, okay.
I wasn't wrong in any of that. I stand by that.
Well,
at that time?
No, my point was that the Panthers were terrible at that time. The Chiefs were 9-5 and making mistakes in games. But Tommy, you weren't the only one. And we brought this up a billion times. You weren't like, my only point this whole year was like, don't panic on the Chiefs, because what we're seeing is correctable. And if they again, the poker term, if they get a chip in the chair, they've got that defense in Mahomes. Like, don't panic on the team, which is honestly, and Jad's got some audio here, and this isn't that bad on you, Tommy, so don't worry. It's not at all. It's not anything terrible. But it does bring up a good point about coach speak and the messaging of Andy Reid. And when you hear Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes talking now, it does sort of go back to it. Let's hit that, Jad, real quick. Here, we'll take it.
Well, I'll tell you the thing that makes me the most angry this morning after the game yesterday, and it really has nothing to do with the game itself. I mean, there's a lot to dissect from yesterday, and I've went through a range of emotions during that game and then after the game. But today, right now, this second, what makes me the most angry are the words that I've heard from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the post-game press conferences after the game yesterday, because it's the same refrain over and over and over again. If we can just clean things up, we're going to be good. That's one thing that Patrick Mahomes said. Andy Reid yesterday said, we're going to be okay. We're going to be all right. Are you? I mean, we're talking about 16 weeks worth of this, and it hasn't changed. It's continued in the exact same way that it's been for the last several weeks, or basically throughout the entire season. That was yesterday the most undisciplined football game from a team that I have seen in a long time.
Now, that was after the Raiders game, correct, Jad?
That's right.
So, again, you didn't say anything that was egregious there, Tommy, but I do think it's interesting with this team and the DNA of this team to know that I don't think they were just like, I don't think that was just like, coach speak or generic cliches. I really do think the Chiefs felt all year like it's going to be okay. We just got to get there. Now, a lot of that was trying to work through the wide receiver room. A lot of the mistakes were that. And they did that. What a redemption story for MVS, because we kind of knew, right? It kind of felt like they're going to have something from one of these guys. Well, he's made 3 massive plays in the last 2 games. And that's all they've needed, right?
Yeah.
But they have needed it. They haven't been able to ignore it. They've obviously kicked Kadarius Toney to the curb. But they have needed a few big plays from MVS, and they did stick to it, and they did stick with it. And it was maddening at times to see them stick with it. This is why, though. They needed MVS to make a couple of big plays. They needed to clean up the mistakes, but they were right. If we can clean up the mistakes, we're going to be fine. They've cleaned up the mistakes, and they're fine. I mean, they were right about that.
Yeah, it was tough to hear that every single week when things were looking pretty grim, and never really hearing anything concrete about what they were going to do about it. That's what made me so frustrated at the time.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, they have worked that formula in the playoffs to a T, and it's worked out really well. And here they are, 1 win away from another championship.
It's almost felt guilty to me to just, because I've also echoed that same sentiment, and it's felt lazy to keep saying it, but I genuinely believed it. If that would have been the Cowboys, for instance, no, it's not going to be good enough. Like, it's not going to be good enough. Really, almost any other team, right, that would have gone through that and just said that, I'm not buying it. But I've always bought it with them because we've seen this before. Like, we've seen so many different versions of this team just get it done in those big spots far more often than they don't get it done in those big spots when it matters the most. And it stared us in the face, and they got there, and they used it. And boy, again, no team wears a chip on its shoulder better. They don't get one very often, but they've been handed a big one up until this point. They're not going to have that in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, they can still use the same chip of doubters in the Super Bowl. But what we're going to hear for the next 2 weeks is how the Chiefs are going to win it, how Brock Purdy can't get it done, how it's Mahomes versus Purdy. I'll take Mahomes every time. That's what we're going to hear for 2 more weeks now, and we'll see how they respond to that. When we return, we'll briefly step away from our talk about championship weekend. We'll get into that Niners-Lions game. We'll spend more time on the Chiefs today, but we're going to talk a little college hoops in the next segment. And we're going to begin it with our KU insider, Shreyas Laddha. Get us the latest on the Jayhawks. They have a big week coming up here. We'll do it next on Sports Daily.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on the Kansas Jayhawks. Let's go now to the KU football and basketball beat writer from the Kansas City Star, Shreyas Laddha.
Welcome back in. We have Shreyas Laddha joining us as we take a brief aside from a Chiefs Celebration Monday, a crazy championship weekend, to talk a little college basketball. And we welcome in our KU insider, Shreyas Laddha. Shreyas, welcome in. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good. All right, let's jump right in and get to everything quickly. Where are you with KU now? 4-3 in the conference. They are right now in a three-way tie for fourth place in the league. Just kind of go back over things and aims there a little bit and where your feeling is for this team on January 29th.
Yeah, Iowa State shot the heck out of the ball. They had 14 made three-pointers, the most they've made in any conference game since 2019. That was a little bit, it was, I think, just bad luck on KU's part, and a little bit it was defensive scheme. Bill alluded to it. They left Trey King open. He's a guy who shoots, I think, like 25% or 18% from three, and he made them pay by making 4 three-pointers. So, credit to him and credit to them. But now the Jayhawks find themselves in unfamiliar territory, as I wrote a couple days ago. This is just the second time ever in the built-up era that they find themselves 4-3 in conference play. And I was just doing the, kind of a look ahead. There's 11 games left. Kansas won the league last year at 13-5. The last time, besides last year, that a team won the league with 5 losses was that all the way back in, I think, 2017-18 season when Kansas won as well. Obviously, the league is a lot better than it was back then, and this league is very competitive. So I think 5 or 6 losses is not outside of the realm of possibilities or even more for winning the league. But basically what Kansas would have to do is, to even be on the pace to, finish with the record they had last year, they have to go 9-2 over the next 11 games. That includes 7 ranked opponents they have to play, including 4 on the road. And it's, I just don't know if that team, the way it's looking right now, is going to be able to win 9 out of 11. But who knows?
Well, what a great nugget on the 4-3, because I didn't realize that. It makes to me, Shreyas, the next 2 sort of must wins if they're going to win the league, right? That's relative to winning the league. But when you've got 2 at home, of course, the one against Oklahoma State is, but Houston's 5-2 in this league. You're going to have to run them down, and they've won 4 in a row. When you get them at home, that if you're going to win the league, you got to win that game, don't you?
100%. If there's a such thing as a must win, it's this week. You have to sweep this week because this is at home. I mean, like you said, you get Houston at home right now, then you get Houston away in March, right? And at that point, maybe that's the deciding factor for whether they win the league or not, or they finish second or third or whatever. But like this week has got to be as perfect as a week for Kansas as possible. Like you cannot lose this game or the Houston game. And I think right now Ken Pom projects them to lose the Houston game, both at home and away. Ken Pom has been pretty good and indicative of where, teams are at, and where Kansas is at. I think they project them to win, 7 out of the next 11, which just isn't, I don't think, good enough to win the league with how competitive this league is. Even if losses stack up for a lot some of the other teams, Kansas is a little bit behind. You're like, it's one thing to lose to Iowa State. It's another thing to lose to West Virginia and UCF. Really, West Virginia. That West Virginia loss was a tough loss, not just, obviously league-wise, but just, I think NCAA tournament-wise. I think, like you said, this week is as big of a week for Kansas as any week. And Bill might not think it's the biggest week in the world, and, he'll have these guys ready to go no matter what seed they end up with or where they finish in the conference. But if you want to make your path as easy as possible, it starts by winning this week, going 2-0, and then, going on a little run the rest of the way.
So that, and again, that's relative to winning the Big 12. I do think there's absolutely a scenario where KU does not win the Big 12, but still positions itself to be a national title contender. So if we put the Big 12 aside, because you've laid out nicely how difficult a path that's going to be, just in general terms of this team's chances to win a title, what over those next 11 games do you think you need to see the most in order for them to be able to do that?
Well, I'd like to see their bench not, score more than one bucket over 2 games. That'd be nice. I would like to see Johnny Furphy continue to play well, like he's been playing since he started the lineup. I think he's added another dimension to this team. I think that's huge. I think I would like to see them win games on the road more often. I mean, they just seem like they're struggling on the road, and I think some of it's bad luck with 3-point shooting. These opponents are just going off. And Kansas being Kansas, right? You walk into any arena, that's their Super Bowl. I mean, like, I think Kevin McCullough alluded to it a couple of days ago. It is pretty much their Super Bowl, and it is. I mean, Kansas is the gold standard in college basketball, and especially the Big 12. So there's no easy night. Not that the league is particularly easy, anyways. But everyone wants to take down the top dog, and Kansas has been the top dog, for this past 2 years, really, in the conference. So, you need to go in expecting every team to want to be the one to take you out and push you out of Big 12 contention, make you worse, make you fall down the AP rankings, et cetera. So I think the couple of things I'm looking for is more road wins, more consistency road wins. You need to rattle off some road wins if they want to, kind of showcase that they can win on neutral ground more often. I want the bench to step up. And Furphy's continue emergence. I think Furphy has, done a tremendous job for this Kansas team. And I've said it before, like with the way he's playing and with the way this draft class is, if he keeps up averaging, 16 and 7, he's going to be an NBA lottery pick in a week and a half. I'm just waiting for the mocks to catch up just because, if a guy like Kevin McCullough, who's been great and he's taken a tremendous step forward and, all that, is projected number 9 in like the Ringers NBA mock draft, and all that. Johnny Furphy, who's 19 years old and very much learning everything on the fly, doing what he's done is even more impressive. And the kind of I'm looking for.
KU's been that top dog. KU's been that top dog to that point for 20 years, not just the last. I mean, they are the top dog. I mean, that's so.
I just said 2 years because Baylor won it 1 year. So.
Right. Yeah, and other teams are up there, but nobody. I mean, there's not a team in college basketball that's been as consistent as KU. One thing, and I want to get your take on this real quick before we let you go. As we look at things that need to happen, like I'm trying to find like tangible. What can we look for? It's a little counterintuitive because he had 15 rebounds against Iowa State and they still lost. But man, I think Hunter Dickinson's got to almost be a double-double guy on average. I think he's got to rebound the ball and become just a force down there in that way for the team. They've had too many games where he hasn't been a big rebounder, and I'm just not sure I think that can happen for them down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree he has got to be a double-double guy, and I think the reason why it's not happening is 2 things. It's, it clearly seems like the knee bruise thing was affecting those 3-game stretch where he was having single-digit rebounds, and it's the minute load. The minute load is really, really high on him and Kevin. And, that's the one thing that worries me about this team is, the starting lineup is pretty good. Bill has played the right card and putting Albracht on the bench and putting Johnny in and all that. And like he alluded to it, when you come to the NCAA tournament time, you have a longer halftime, you have longer days in between games, you're not, it's not as rushed, right? So it doesn't matter. Like the idea of depth doesn't matter as much. But right now, you can clearly see guys like Kevin and Hunter are banged up with some knee bruises. You can see some tired legs because they're playing heavy, heavy minutes in games, because the bench just isn't good enough. And that's the one worry with this team for me in the regular season is, a lot of the bench issues are kind of mitigated come NCAA tournament time or Big 12 tournament time, because you can kind of just, play these guys heavy minutes or whatever, or play 7-8 man rotation like Bill loves to do and kind of get away with it. But right now, these guys are prone to tired legs And, along with the nicks and bruises, and then it leads to games where Hunter doesn't look like himself, where, before the Iowa State game, he had a couple of games where he was having single-digit rebounds, which just isn't Hunter Dickinson that we've seen from Kansas this season.
All right, Shreyas, we appreciate it. Big week, as we've talked about. What do you have coming up? What can people find at the Star with your work this week?
Yeah, I should have some stuff on Kansas football transfer portal stuff probably sometime later this week. We'll have all the usual game coverage and stuff like that. I'm hoping to do some stuff on Johnny Furphy in the next couple of weeks. I just talked to his parents, so it should be a fun little feature there. That's pretty much it. All
right. Shreyas Laddha, KU insider, beat reporter for KU basketball and football at the KC Star. You can find him on social media at SHRE98. Shreyas, appreciate it. Enjoy the week at home.
Thanks for having me, guys.
There he goes. And we'll transition into some other college basketball talk here, Tommy, before we go back to the NFL. By the way, Aaron says on our video stream that DeJuan Harris needs to shoot the ball more. Aaron, we've been saying that for 3 years. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think he will. So let's real quick. K-State, Tommy. K-State loses at Houston, loses big. We talked about how difficult their week was at Iowa State, followed by at Houston. Now I think for them, it's just simply you come back. You've got Oklahoma. K-State still at 4-3, same place KU is. Oklahoma's down there 3-4. Oklahoma's much better in the net right now. I think you got to beat Oklahoma here back at home and just let everybody know that, hey, we're okay. That was just a tough week on the road in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think that I watched a lot of that game against Houston and coming away from it, I think it tells you more about Houston than it does about K-State. Yeah. I knew that Houston was really good. I think we all knew Houston was really good. I didn't think that they were beat K-State 27 points or whatever the final score was. Good. That was impressive. That was absolutely impressive. And Kansas State just didn't have an answer for the oppressive defense that the Cougars play. That's just what they do. That's what they hang their hat on. That's what they're known for. That's why Kelvin Sampson is such a great coach. And, them making that transition from the American to the Big 12 has worked out really well for them. So I think that for the Wildcats, they've got to regroup. They've got to get back, in line with what their expectations are for this season. And I'm with you. I think that them back at home against Oklahoma, they've got to show a good effort there because the Sooners are another really good team in the conference.
How about the week Iowa State had, by the way, knocking off both Kansas and Kansas State, granted at home. But man, the league is good. Did you know BYU is still number 5 right now in the net rankings? How wild is that?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't know. I don't pretend to even understand the way the net rankings work. There are so many different things that go into it, and it always confuses me.
It sucks because you want to downplay them, but they matter to seeding. And they're number 9 in the KenPom. So I look at the KenPom far more than I look at the net to look at how good teams actually are. Listen, BYU's at 9, Kansas is at 17, which is wild to imagine. And K-State's even further down than that. Where is K-State right now in the KenPom, by the way? Let's take a look at that. They're down at 65. So, metrically, things have a lot of sorting out still to do. Wichita State, Tommy, heck yeah. I am so stoked that they found a way to win that game. I hated the conversations we had to have last week and that we'll continue to have throughout the rest of the season. It got to the point where you didn't feel like they even had a chance in their conference tournament. Now you get a nice home win against SMU. They actually win a game. They're in a position to win, which has been, something they've struggled with this year. But you've got to follow it up this week now if you want to, eliminate the noise that has been, coming from everywhere, including here. You got to start to string it together a little bit. And you've got a tremendous opportunity to do it against Tulsa on Wednesday. That's a game you got to go on the road and have, because after that, you get to welcome in Memphis. And guess what you get to welcome in Memphis to? The national CBS biggest college basketball, window that there is. So you have got to show yourself well in that game. And then, and then it's UTSA, and then you get to take some shots at some wins. But at minimum, Tommy, winning and beating SMU tells you internally, we can win these games, right? We've been in a position to win some of them. We haven't. Now we know that we can. Now you got to build on that. And I'm so glad that they got that win on Sunday. I wish it wasn't playing at the literal same time as the Chiefs. I was able to watch it. I had them both on at the same time, but I wish more eyeballs could have been there for the Shockers' sake and for, the Shocker fan base and everything. But you know what will help? Follow it up with a big win against Tulsa, and then let's see what happens against Memphis at home.
And Tulsa's not very good, so they've got that.
That hasn't always been. That hasn't always been.
That's true. I know
a thing for Wichita State.
I know. Going back to the Memphis game this weekend in that national window, I'm watching the KU Iowa State game on CBS, and they do a graphic for what's coming up, next Saturday. And I saw Wichita State at Memphis in the national window. And my first reaction at the time was, oh God, I forgot they're playing on national TV against
we
Memphis.
won, but right? Like those are the things we won.
But not in the midst of that losing streak, and of course they win the next day. They win yesterday against SMU. So I feel better about that. And Memphis, has been up and down a couple different times in the conference, but in that moment on Saturday, when they're still in that losing streak and I see that graphic come up, I'm like, oh Lord, like this is not going to be a fun national game to watch. But then, if they can play the way that they did yesterday against SMU on the road at Memphis, you feel a little bit better about that. And so I'm really interested to hear what Paul Mills has to say on his coach's show tonight after the SMU win.
Yeah.
The Shockers were able to make some shots. They were able to go on a couple of different runs late in the game. They've got to do that more consistently against Memphis this weekend if they want a chance to hang into that game. If they can play like they did in the first half at home against Memphis, if they can do that consistently in the game this weekend, I'm not predicting that the Shockers are going to win the game, but I think that if they can at least do that, they can hang with Memphis.
So Memphis has been much better at home than on the road, just for reference's sake. They did lose to South Florida at home by 1, and then they proceeded to lose 2 more. Memphis is on a 3-game losing streak right now. They lost at Tulane and lost at UAB last week. Now they get to come home. So we'll see. Wichita State's going to have a chance. We've got hope again here that they're going to be able to hang in some of these games. I hope the consistency comes for this team. And it's a big, big, big opportunity for Paul Mills and Wichita State. Build on something here. And let's get some hope back in the room for the Shocker basketball program. You alluded to it very nicely there, Tommy. The Shocker Coaches Show is live for free on KFH tonight. You can also find it on the Odyssey app. Tune in for the Terry Nooner Show at 6 and then the Paul Mills Show at 7. You can also simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH. We'll table college basketball talk for today. Much more coming throughout the week, of course, in college hoops. Back to the NFL. Chiefs back to the Super Bowl, and so are the 49ers. We'll talk about that game and open that conversation for the first time here on this Reaction Monday when we return on Sports Daily.
I think I want to hear this.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Boy, what a game. What a game. What a game for the Chiefs to get back in to the postseason. Jad, you said you have an audio cut. Is that what you just told me? Okay. All right. All right. Let's go to the Niners Lions. Apologies, Jad. I missed whatever you said. I am sad for the Lions. I am. They did everything right. And then, again, I think they just made a few mistakes that snowballed on them quickly. And San Francisco got it together, right? San Francisco, who has been that kind of team all year, got it together in conjunction with a few mistakes by the Lions. They dropped a few passes. I didn't have that big a problem going for it when they went for it on the fourth down, just because that's who they are, and that's what they've done all season long. So that doesn't bother me too much. I wouldn't have done it, but it doesn't bother me that they did, because that's what they've done all year. It's a part of their identity, like big picture identity. So fine, right? You didn't convert. It's too bad. I hate it. That incredible story from this year is done. And I thought about this after the game, Tommy, a lot. And I don't know. I don't think I put it out there. I don't think I did, because I couldn't decide who's more likely to get back to that spot, the Ravens or the Lions. And I'm not sure I have, because I think that the quick, obvious answer would be the Ravens, right? But I for somebody like me who wasn't all in on the Lions to begin it, I'm becoming that way. And I think they're like an off season away from being really, really good. It reminds me sort of where the Chiefs were, was it 2018 or 19, whenever they lost to the Patriots in that AFC Championship game, that first year of trying to get there. I just kept like, that's when they really like if the Lions can just do some of the same types of things, like get a few more talented defensive players on that roster, they've kind of got all the pieces. They got a great line. Goff is clearly good enough. They've got their tight end in place now. They have their top two receivers are awesome. They just need to get a little better defensively. I think they're close to being like in the mix every year, kind of good here.
I think they've got the talent to go all the way. I think it was.
I agree.
It was the mistakes that they made and the coaching mistakes that they made. And look, here's the thing. I understand the Lions have done this all season long. That's what makes Dan Campbell, Dan Campbell. I get that. I understand that. But there is a very fine line between being aggressive and being reckless. And they had an opportunity to go up 3 scores with the field goal in that game. And they didn't take it. They didn't take the points in that moment where there really wasn't a huge upside to go for it. Like, that's the difference between being aggressive and being reckless. When you need to go for it, like in a tight game and you want to keep a drive alive or whatever, okay, like let's roll the dice and let's make it happen. But you've got the lead, and then you've got a chance to go up 3 scores. And that could have drastically altered the 49ers game plan, and they didn't take that opportunity. That's where I have an issue with it. With the talent on the team, man, I think that they're there right now. I think that they've got the chance to, like, the talent level to win a championship. But you've got to be smarter in those coaching decisions. And so I don't necessarily think that in the offseason they really need to do a whole lot. Maybe they've got some improvements they can make defensively, and that's okay, and that's fine. But by and large, it's there. I think from a philosophical standpoint, and from a play calling standpoint and a decision-making standpoint, that's where the changes probably need to be made in this offseason if they want to get over that hump and go all the way.
I think
I don't can't leave points on the board in that big of a stage. And you know what? I like Dan Campbell.
They do it all year, and that's a part of what put them there. Like, you can't say
but
that
not
you
in
can't
those
do it
situations.
because they have. Well,
not in
yeah,
those
you need to adapt.
situations.
You do need to adapt. But Andy Reid's as aggressive a coach as there is in football. Bill Belichick was as aggressive a coach, and that didn't always work out for Belichick. It doesn't always work out for Reid. It didn't work out for Reid in the game yesterday, and that field goal. And looking back, could have been. And again, I said it at the time. I think I would have kicked that field goal only stubbornly to say stick to the plan, because they didn't stick to the plan there. It wasn't egregious, but that field goal mattered at the end of the game. So yeah, but the Chiefs haven't always needed to adapt like they have this year, right? And so there could be different circumstances in different years. The Lions aren't very good defensively. So if they felt like they needed to go, if they felt like they couldn't stop the 49ers, which I don't blame them, they kind of couldn't, then I sort of am more okay with it than normally I would be. Because again, that's a part of what's gotten them there. It's different than taking an absurd risk for no reason, right? We're like, where did that come from? Why did they do that?
Yeah, but you go up by 3 scores. And then, at that point, you've kind of put your foot on the throat of the 49ers, right?
Somebody said it was, I think it was a buddy, and it was my favorite text, like on the fly, like smart aleck moment. And there were a lot of good ones. There always are on an NFL Sunday. But the text he said was, it was after they scored that touchdown late, right? He said, I'm surprised they kicked the extra point there. It was in like such an obvious, like, said, absolutely no reason. It would have been nonsensical to go for 2, but just in the moment, like a perfect, like capture the moment text. I was like, man, that's good stuff.
I think you can compare and contrast the styles of Dan Campbell and Kyle Shanahan really, really well. Campbell is this emotional, aggressive players kind of guy. Kyle Shanahan is emotionless. He's calm. Like, and you watched this team, the 49ers, go down, what was it, 24-7? And it wasn't like Shanahan panicked. It wasn't like he did anything or that team did anything to make you think, wow, like they're off their game now because of what the Lions had done. And then they systematically, methodically got back into the game. And then all of a sudden, they've got the lead and they don't give it back up again. And so I really liked contrasting those two coaches and their styles. And Kyle Shanahan is back to the Super Bowl now.
Yep. And he's got to win it. I mean, you want to talk about pressure? The 49ers should probably feel a lot of it. And the pressure is going to go both ways for the Chiefs too, because you're trying to cement your legacy. You're chasing Brady. You're chasing the Patriots. Who knows, because of the chatter, what the future holds for 2 of your 3 Hall of Famers, for 2 of your 4 Hall of Famers, really for 3 of your 4 Hall of Famers, and Chris Jones, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce. Again, I don't know where the noise is coming from on Reid and Kelce, but it's there. So I'm fascinated to see. I'm heartbroken for the Lions fans. What a cool story, and what a run that would have been. I also think that the Chiefs would have killed them in the Super Bowl. So maybe for football's sake, this is the correct matchup. These are the 2 teams that should be there. They were the 2 teams that a lot of people I would bet you that this was the most predicted Super Bowl preseason. Was it, Jad? You just sent us this stuff. I'm curious now. I wonder who I put in there against. I'll let Jad look at that because it'll take me an hour to find it, to see who we put in the Super Bowl. But I do think the Chiefs would have beaten the Lions badly. I don't know what I'm gonna. I don't know what to think about this Super Bowl yet.
Lions did beat the Chiefs in Week 1 of the regular season.
That's part of the reason why I think the Chiefs would have beaten them badly.
Yeah.
Again, chip on the shoulder kind of a thing. I think, stylistically, I just look at those kinds of things, and, Goff has thrown some interceptions, some things like that. Goff against that secondary in that moment, I would have, it may have been a struggle. Now you look at it with the best in the business in the backfield, and really kind of a 2-headed monster with Debo and apparently Brock Purdy. Who can clearly run like he did a few big times last night. That's going to be tough on the Chiefs. Kyle Shanahan's not going to abandon the run. Okay,
no,
like that. Like never in the history of the world will he abandon the run. I do not know what the Ravens were thinking. The Niners are not going to do that. They're not going to put the ball in Brock Purdy's hands and say, "Go beat the best secondary in football." They are going to run the rock with the best in the business. And this will be fascinating.
All right.
The Chiefs are also going to run the ball. All right. What do we have, Jeff?
Okay. I've got the divisional picks that you guys made preseason this year. Does look like basically, Jacob, you had Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. Tommy, you had Cincinnati Eagles, Cincinnati winning the Super Bowl.
I'm surprised I didn't put San Francisco in there, but I remember now. I mean, after the draft and the Eagles got all those players and it looked like their defense was going to be so good and it just wasn't. But this is the Super Bowl that should be there, Tommy. Like these are the two teams that should be there. You can say that the Ravens should be there. I'll hear that, but I do think that the Chiefs are better than them. This will be a fascinating one, and the money's going to move to the Chiefs. But I'm telling you, the Niners are not going to make the same mistake that the Ravens made, and the Ravens still were a Zay Flowers fumble away from maybe a different outcome there. I've got money on the Chiefs from the preseason, and I've been on this, and they're back in this game. I'm not sure yet if I'm ready to say I think the Chiefs will win this game. It is Mahomes versus Purdy. That's probably going to be what sways me in that direction. But the Niners will not do what the Ravens did. They will run the ball.
You know who Brock Purdy reminds me of? Reminds me of Eli Manning in his prime. You know, Manning was a guy that I feel like defenses looked at and thought, we don't really need to do a whole lot against you. We need to do a lot against your weapons that you might have, your wide receivers and your running backs and all of that, your tight ends. But we don't really need to game plan against you. That's kind of what Brock Purdy strikes me as. And I think that that's going to be the challenge, is that a lot of times defenses will look at Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, just the loaded offensive weapons and skill players that the 49ers have. And they think, okay, Brock Purdy, we'll let you beat us, but we're not going to let these other guys beat us. And Brock Purdy did that last night to the Lions. And the Lions kind of left him alone. And Purdy was able to go and just, run and throw and do all of that. The Chiefs have to game plan against that in a better way. And that's tough to do when they've got a ton of different weapons. And like we've talked about before, the Niners look so much better when Deebo Samuel is on the field and healthy than when he's not. And so that's going to be a big time game plan for Steve Spagnuolo, is how do you game plan against a quarterback that really is not super impressive, but all of his weapons are. That's going to be a challenge.
Well, listen, he was impressive in the comeback. He was not impressive in the first half. He was impressive with his legs, certainly. That's a new development for me anyway. And I feel like I've watched a lot of Brock Purdy. But what he does seem like, and I agree with you, that's a great comp on Eli Manning, because he's a gamer, man. Like he finds a way, and it's a really good job.
And I think people underestimated Eli
did it
a
without
lot.
talent. He did it without that talented of an offense. Like he had Tiki Barber for a lot of it, and he was really good.
He had Victor Cruz. He had some of those other guys that Sterling Shepard. He had some other guys.
Yeah. He had OBJ for a minute. Yeah. But not like what the Niners have right now. And I'm not worried about Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, like at all. The Chiefs secondary is going to be fine. I'm worried about Christian McCaffrey, and I'm worried about Deebo as a runner, and I'm worried about clearly Brock Purdy's got some juice in those legs now if a play breaks down. So then it becomes, okay, the Niners offensively will be better than the Ravens were offensively in that game, and the Ravens were pretty okay offensively. They just didn't do what they were supposed to do, which is run the ball. Niners will. So then it kind of flips around, and it's like, how are the Chiefs going to do against that Niners defense? And that's where I will probably find myself back with the Chiefs. I don't think the Niners defense is going to stop the Chiefs in its tracks. I think the Chiefs put 17 and should have been 20 on one of the best defenses, if not the best in football. The Niners aren't that. They're not the best defense in football. They've got some playmakers on that defense. They've got great middle linebackers. They've got Bosa. But, I mean, the Lions just put 442 yards of offense on them, right? They ran for 182 yards. Goff threw it around plenty. I think the Chiefs' offense is going to be just fine in this game. That's probably what will get me back to the Chiefs. Let's see over-under on the Super Bowl right now. Let's take a look at that, because that over might be an opportunity. 47.5. That's going to be interesting. The Chiefs don't get that high very often, but that'll be an interesting. The Niners defense doesn't scare me that much, I guess, Tommy. I mean, when the things that they do well, Mahomes should be able to nullify some of it just by being Mahomes and being cerebral, right? And I think he'll give them a little bit of the. I mean, before yesterday, Mahomes hadn't been sacked in a while, and so if you're not going to do that, and you give Kelsey and Rice and I think the Chiefs' offense is in a pretty good spot here. It's can they hold down that offense? Most of the time, defense wins championships, right? I think I'll probably end up with the Chiefs on this, but I do think this will be a fascinating one.
I thought the offensive line yesterday for Kansas City looked good to start the game. And then I think they got worn down a little bit. Kyle Hamilton was all over the place for Baltimore. We saw
holy moly.
We saw back-to-back holding calls on Trey Smith, one of which I thought was kind of ticky-tack, but he did get called for it. Jawan Taylor got a holding call, which is the norm, as of now with him playing on that team. I thought Nick Allegretti filled in well for Joe Thuney, and it doesn't look like, Thuney will be back for the Super Bowl. That might be a long shot as far as the reporting that I've seen in the last 24 hours.
Against that defense. That'll be all right.
You've got Nick Bosa though, who's going to the edge and all of that. So you've got to be, on it, that offensive line for Kansas City. And Baltimore didn't get to Mahomes until the second half. So the offensive line held up well early on in the game. I just think they got worn down and got tired. So you're going now from a Baltimore defense to a San Francisco defense. And that's an upgrade, right? San Francisco's defense is really for the Chiefs, but they do have Nick Bosa. So you've got to keep your eyes on that.
And it's interesting because if Thuney was going to be a big problem, it would have been against the Ravens, who are great on the interior defensive line. I don't think the Niners are. I mean, their middle linebackers are good, so maybe they can, blitz or something a little more with those two than they typically would.
You got to pick up on those outside blitzes. That's really the way that the offensive line for Kansas City is going to have to block.
The dangerous thing for the Chiefs in this game, again, at an early bird's eye view, is that the Niners control the clock, right? Brock Purdy can do that, and their run game can allow them to do that. That's the danger for the Chiefs. The Chiefs will have it was the danger with the Ravens too, because the Ravens should have been doing the same thing. They just flat didn't for whatever reason. Again, that I'll never understand. The Niners can do the same thing and just keep the Chiefs away from the field. But again, I think the Ravens defense is way better than the Niners defense. So we'll see. It will be a good one. It will be it is the right matchup. It's going to be fun. I cannot wait. What a story. There's 1,000 of them coming into this game. We'll continue the conversation when we return on Sports Daily. Can we spend a minute here on the MVS portion of this story for the Kansas City Chiefs? I mean, it's unreal how critical he has been from where we were with him, dropping passes. You can directly correlate some of the losses to his mistakes. And here he is. And man, there aren't a lot of locker rooms where this kind of thing could keep happening, and they're done with Kadarius Toney. I don't know what Toney was doing yesterday, but it's the same thing he did in New York, so who knows? But MVS never did that kind of stuff, right? Like, he was feeling it. You could tell that he was feeling it, and they continued to have his back. They did take him out of the game plan a little bit, let him cool off, let him whatever, but here he is. And 15 has no problem going to him now 3 times in some of the biggest spots of the game that could, it'd be one thing, Tommy, if earlier in the game they're trying to scheme up some gadget play for him, but they're going to him in the biggest spots of these games and leaning on him to make these plays, and he's making them. That catch yesterday, imagine a month ago MVS making that kind of catch. It's not just he caught it, right? That was an incredible catch.
Yeah, I saw somebody tweet yesterday that MVS is like that baseball player who hits 230 in the regular season, but in the playoffs hits like 350 with 4 home runs. Like, that's just kind of what he is. Like, the playoffs, when it comes around to that and the pressure is on, he's coming through. The regular season catches, in fact, a lot of those that he dropped in the regular season were quote unquote easy catches, right? Like, they're ones that are routine that a wide receiver at that level should be making in his sleep all the time. And he wasn't able to do it. But the playoffs come around and they lean on him, and he's been able to make some really clutch catches. I don't know what that says about him as an NFL player. I don't know what it says about his longevity in the league long term, what it's going to look like moving forward. I have no idea. I don't know. And frankly, I don't really care at this point right now. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But the bottom line is that when he's needed to come through the most, he has. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him for that, because he's gotten a lot of criticism, well-deserved, and some of it he's brought on himself. But he's been able to come through when Mahomes and the Chiefs have needed him the most.
He's not going to be there next year, I don't think. That would surprise me greatly, because I think they're about
a lot of guaranteed money.
They're about to load up. I think
there's going to be a cap hit, I think, right? Won't there be a cap hit?
I don't know, but I think they can escape some of it. Maybe I'm misunderstanding his contract, but I think they can escape a lot of that. They're going to be more talented at wide receiver next year than they are this year. I'm pretty confident in that. They're not going to let this happen again. But they need him. They're going to need him in this game, probably for 1 or 2 big plays. I'm far more comfortable with him out there than McCole Hardman. Far more comfortable with him out there than Kadarius Toney, right? I think he's a good blocker. I believe he's a good blocker. I don't pay a lot of attention to that, but I'm pretty sure his reputation is of that. But it's going to be the same thing. They're going to lean on their tight ends. They're going to pepper Rice and Kelsey with a ton of targets, and he'll probably get 2 or 3, and they'll be in big moments, and they'll need him to make plays. Does he have to come up with the big catch to seal the game? I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but it's nice to have that in the bag. And it's nice for everybody else, too. It's nice for the other receivers. It's nice for Isaiah Pacheco. The Ravens did a really good job on Pacheco. And that's as much as he's struggled that I can remember all year. And I love that the Chiefs just kept feeding him, right? 24 carries. That's where they need to be in any game that they play this year. Maybe not next year. Maybe not any year after this year, but this year, it's where it's got to be. And that's where it's been. And it's going to be fine if he has 24 carries for 65 yards. Don't care. It makes the other team respect it.
I was doubtful that Kansas City would ever get to the point to give Isaiah Pacheco that number of carries, that kind of workload. They did, because they have to. That's right. The formula. That's what works.
And he's healthy. And, he has a toe injury, and hopefully that doesn't flare up. I guess that was more serious than I thought it was, but he looked fine. And so hopefully with 2 weeks, he'll be okay. They should, I would think, get Willie Gay back for this. You mentioned Tooney, but they're going to be in a pretty good position there. And I don't think the Niners have any significant injuries, which is a problem when the Niners are fully healthy. We know that. When they're fully healthy and they're not, they're two very different teams. I think they're going to be healthy in this game. We'll have a lot of time to talk about that. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on the network tonight when Sports Daily comes back.
Patterson Legal is the way to go. Call 550-0000.
All right, you heard Ted there. You've got both the coaches' show. Terry Nooner at 6, Paul Mills at 7 for the Shockers right here on KFH. Regular programming before then. Jen Rome takes us until 2 o'clock immediately following. You get Bob and Jeff locally. Zach Gelb from 4 to 6 before those coaches' shows. Tommy, your Chiefs are back in it. Ride high.
Man, we made it. I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks talking about it.
It's going to be a fascinating Super Bowl. I love it. We haven't even talked about Taylor Swift. Not one time. There you go, haters. Gonna hate. We'll be back tomorrow with more Sports Daily.